My name is Ib Kamara, or Ib Kamara, and I am a creative director, artist, part-time musician, and every other thing else that I do. If you believe it, it shouldn't really affect you because you've put out the best you can to the world, and just the audacity to be a creative alone should reassure you that that's okay, because not everyone have the will to have an idea, formulate it, do it, put it out. A typical day for me in Sierra Leone will be, well, growing up will be, you hear the chickens scream in the morning, the dogs and cats are all hungry, the beach is literally there. You pick mangoes, you go to the market, you get your bread, your mom makes food before school. So yeah, it was very easy, very, very simple life, but it was beautiful. I carry every part of my Africanness, I think, and I think not being born in the West gave me a very unfiltered perspective of life, where I never felt as a minority, because I was never a minority where I was from. So I have a very majority complex. I don't believe I'm a minority. And it sounds delusional when I talk to some people, but I was ingrained to not feel that way. And everyone looked like me. So my Africanness is unfiltered. I love it. I reference it. I celebrate it. I grew up with so much culture around me, so much music, so much dance, so much taste. My aunties and uncle wore incredible pieces in the 90s, and so Sierra Leone is a free, Freetown is a free city of expression. So people were very expressive where I come from. So I took all of that and all my tribe. I'm from 3 different tribes, so there's so much culture there to take into. I didn't feel like a minority when I came to England. I know my accent was different for sure. I really stood out, and I maybe looked way different from many people that were around me. But I didn't feel different. If anything, I wanted to find my own path. I wanted to find my own people that looked like me, people that sounded like me, people that had my same interests. So it took me a couple of years, of course, but I eventually found it. And so there was never a moment of my youth where I felt like I was a minority. I think my mom calling me a tailor is probably the easiest way she can understand what I do without so much having to think about it, or if she needs to tell her friends what I do. And yeah, in the beginning it was more like, oh, you want to be a tailor? But in the end, I think tailors are actual masters. And I remember growing up in Freetown and, going to a tailor, they can cut me with an eye, which is not even what, in the West is different. There's so much technicalities, but, and I've done a couple of work on the continent. I did a whole collection in Johannesburg in 2017, but it was all made by African tailors, and the constructions were insane, like boning. So I feel like, tailoring is such a celebrated craft, and there's so much value in it. And even the prospect of seeing more African youth taking on tailoring is quite impressive. And designing can be anything, And so yeah, the easiest way for my mom to understand what I do is tailoring, but there's so much value. And even if that was she thought I did, but there's so much value in being a tailor, and there's so much richness in that craft.
And I think also like culturally, it's like different. Like a tailor actually in West Africa is a designer.
It's a designer, yeah. It's a different perspective, And I always feel like Africans, we've always wore couture pieces because made to measure, it is the concept of couture. So on the continent, people are literally having made to measure every day. And I think it's not celebrated as couture in the West, in Africa, but I think in the West, if I go to Chanel and say, I want you to make me the exact thing you just did, and it'll be seen as couture, but we're born into it. Yeah. We are born into this idea that you get stuff made for you, and it's personal, and it's beautiful. I think 2020 with Black Lives Matter really gave me a pause that I really needed to really reroute myself back in my Africanness and in my Blackness. And I found so much love in being an African and being Black and where I'm from. And I think that quick pause really lit a fire behind me to continue to create the work I create. And not only that, but just be really happy with being in my skin. And when I moved to England, I remember there was so much negative around being African. Almost to be Africa was seen as like the lowest part of like. But I never understood that because I know the childhood I had was exciting. It was filled with so much culture, so much music, so much. And I've always felt that way, even through uni, through a lot of my work. But 2020, I had to reclaim it more. So since 2020, I feel like I became more radical in my thinking as an African. I became much more. I went deeper, and I celebrated everything about Africa, everything about being Black, everything there is. And so I walk the world not as a minority. I walk the world as a majority, because that's who we are. People of the South, we're the majority at the end of the day. So I work with those beliefs. I might sound delusional, but it keeps me going, makes me sleep at night. By continuing to reinforce that vision, again, like I was saying, just being an African, you have taste, and I think the continent is pulls out so much taste. I mean, if you travel around the continent from one city to another city, the level of culture you will witness within an hour is insane. The level of visual explosion. So we can never run out. I can never run out of inspiration from where I'm from. So there's nothing to protect if it's in abundance, if you're born into it, if it's part of you. I'm only here to share it. I don't feel like I need to keep it and guard it. If anything, I'm intrigued by what other people have to say about where they're from. I always keep an open mind to learn from other cultures, but I'm very confident in where I'm from, that the references are limitless. I think if you make work to be approved by people, then I think you'll feel that way. I think it will hit harder if you're not doing it for yourself. And so my work is never about people's reaction. It's never about that. Am I happy with it? Is this all I can give? Am I saying something? And I always stand by what I make. There's a lot of sensitivity that goes into my work. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of caution. And I understand the platform that I share, that I have to be responsible as well. So I'm never worried about the end result, because there's so much thinking that goes behind what I do naturally, or so much research, or so much perspective. So if someone does not digest it, it's no longer my problem. And I let that to be your perspective. And also, it's also fine if many people don't digest your work at a certain time. It takes time, It takes time. And if things are dismissed, if you believe it, it shouldn't really affect you, because you've put out the best you can to the world. And just the audacity to be a creative alone should reassure you that that's okay. Because not everyone have the will to have an idea, formulate it, do it, put it out. And, all those steps you've taken, it's such a brave move that whatever comes after that, it's okay. It's a learning curve, And if you did do it for you, it should never really hurt, because it's to enrich yourself and get better. And there's always somebody that's going to resonate with your work, even if there's a lot of negative around. There's always two sides, So you have to choose where you want to lean into. When I want to make a collection, let's say for Off-White, I always go back to myself. I will go back to my research, my perspective, where I'm from. but then I'm mixing it with like an American brand with so much rich DNA from Virgil. So there's so much codes in there. So I'm always mixing so many ideas and concepts, and I know I land on something when it feels right for me. When I see the first silhouette, when I see the first color cards, or I love the research aspect of it the most because it's endless possibilities. You know, you can make anything in research in your head. Then you have to come to the practical side of it, of course, but within that research, I know I would have found a theme. I would have found a woman and a man for the collection. And it's something with my work, visually or everything as I do, you just know in your spirit when something feels right. And you just have to leave it there and let it be and let the other people digest it. I think it's just, for me, I think I want people to remember me because I had the audacity to dream. I did not see myself as a minority coming from Sierra Leone. I went for I went for my dreams, even though my parents didn't believe it was a thing. I think delusion helped me a lot to navigate life. And this concept that, and I think just generally feeling like because you can do it, I can do it mentality. And my skin color should not reflect what's possible for me. And I've never sort of like doubted myself as to how much I can achieve based on how I look. And maybe there's a delusion in that. And I think life should be like that. There should not be a sense of obstacle in your way because of where you're from, how you look, your upbringing, your financial situation. I think there should always be a space for you to dream and hopefully achieve what you want.